You're listening to State of the Arts. We cover the art scene in St. Augustine, the nation's oldest city. From the people and organizations that create the art to the venues that display it, we cover it all, from artist to venue and everything in between. You're listening to State of the Arts. Hey, welcome back. Thanks for listening. I'm John Bashara. This is State of the Arts. In this episode, we're going to continue our conversation with the folks that define, create, and drive the art scene in St. Augustine. First up, Tom Rayner, representing 7 decades of theatrical experience, including performance, directing, design, and production, not to mention founding Flagler College's theater department. Then, Marie Cachet, president of the St. Augustine Community Chorus. Tom, in the last episode, you said that
art is self-disciplined creativity. Period. I'm talking about art in the broadest sense, whether it's photography, as we are surrounded with painting, dance, music, theater, opera, whatever form the art, ceramics, sculpture. There's an awful lot that passes as art that is either devoid or very short on creativity or sensitivity. There's art made, let's see, will the public buy this?
What do you mean by buy? You mean give you money, or will they believe it?
Yeah, will they give me money for it? And that's all right. I think it's great when artists are compensated for their work, and they should be. But if that's why you do it, I think your soul is pretty dry.
If that's your sole motivation?
Yeah. Or, yeah, the pun. Pardon the pun. If you get a reaction from it, great. But if the only reaction you get is disgust, I don't think it's quite so great. Now, I'm not talking about being uncomfortable, because some great works of art are disgusting. Oh, that's horrible. That's horrible, but it makes me understand. It makes me feel.
I can't quit looking at
it. Yeah. And that's why I say art is self-discipline creativity. Many artists lack discipline. If you don't know what you're doing, it doesn't matter what you do. If it's not conscious, if it's not controlled, then it's just randomness. And that's not art.
Art is creative, innovative, self-awareness, well, that's 2 words, and projection. From the earliest times that man has been on this earth, there's been the urge to create. We can look at the stone carvings and the stone imprints of hands in the caves that we've all seen pictures of. This was the need to say, I'm here. Remember me, I'm here. This is my story, and I want you to see the animals that I deal with every day.
To be known.
To be known. You've just said to be known. I think that's one of the deepest drives all of us have, is to be known and understood. Maybe not agreed with, but to be known and understood. To have some credibility in this world. To say, hey, he knows what they're doing. They know who they are. And they're trying to act out who they are in the very best way the world can imagine. through their creativity. It can be anything. It can be, in fact, I cannot think, I can think of one thing that is not creative, and that would be a battlefield. That would be a battlefield where you see craters and dead bodies and people in the process of dying. That is not creative in the least. And that, or something like 911, no, that's not creative. But almost everything is. Following on to that, whatever affects you does not necessarily have to be something that affects you in a good way. It could be, you could be ending up in tears, in fear, in horror. Anything that affects you in some way, I would say, is an offshoot of art in some way. But again, there are exceptions. If you're on the, God forbid, on the battlefield and you're witnessing or actually engaged in killing others, and please don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that war isn't necessary sometimes. Sometimes you must defend yourself. It's a fact of life.
And now it's time for Anecdote of the Month. Our anecdote this episode features Anne Craft and Jean Rayner recounting their founding of the Limelight Theater. Let's take a listen.
There was a dinner theater at the Monson Bayfront, and the owners of the dinner theater decided to split out of town, and they left me because I was managing the theater. I had met Anne. She was newly here back from New York to St. Augustine. We had worked on a couple of shows, and I thought, well, I don't know what I'm doing because I was offered the dinner theater. So I thought, well, let me call.
What capacity did you work in that dinner theater?
I was the manager, I was the stage manager, and I was the performer.
And so it goes here in town.
Yeah, you do everything.
Mm-hmm.
Which is fine with me. It keeps you busy. So I knew Anne, and I knew she had some experience. So I thought, I gave her a call and said, Anne, I don't have any money, but we have a dinner theater here, and we have tours coming. And she was dumb enough to say,
why not?
And you take it from there.
Well, we didn't have 2 cents between us, right? And but he, the owner of the theater, gave us an offer you couldn't refuse. I mean, it was like we only had to pay a percentage of each ticket we actually sold. There was no rent per se. Have you ever heard of such a thing?
So he took strictly a piece of the action.
Yeah. And the action was very slim in the beginning. Yeah. One time.
What did the ticket go? What year are we talking about here?
1992.
What was the ticket going for in 92?
Same as it is now. I think it was like $25.
It was dinner theater, so it was
Yeah.
like 25. Yeah.
Yeah, how little things change.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we took the dinner away.
Yeah, and it was often not very good.
The mystery,
Dinner wasn't good?
the mystery meat was the feature.
Mystery play, not the mystery meat, huh?
Yeah,
We had to laugh, but
yeah.
ultimately, it was very interesting, and I'd never been at that end of the business before. I'd always just been performing, so that was an introduction.
Put all this stuff together to keep the theater alive?
Yeah.
You kept doing all these things that were not all that much fun necessarily?
It was fun
It
because
was.
we had such wonderful people who came to us, who joined us. And it was a lot of work, but it was fun. Everybody had the same ideal. It was about the big picture. It wasn't about anybody's ego.
And
It was
exactly.
fabulous.
And plus the fact that the talent here in town was exceptional. And they put up with us and the rats, in the roof, and the shoddy sets.
Where was this
and
location?
stuff. The Monson Motor Lodge. It is now the Hilton.
The Avalese
Downtown.
room
Oh my
on the
God.
Bayfront.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it is the famous Monson Motor Lodge. That's
Yeah,
where
yeah,
they
yeah.
tried to. They attempted to integrate. That was 1965, 67.
Right.
By 92, things were calming down, and people were living, and wanting to see theater. There was no other theater.
Why do we need art in the community? And why do we need theater in particular?
You need to ask the community. We know what we want to do, and we kind of know what will bring them in. But what is it they want? What satisfies them? I don't know.
I don't think they know.
I don't think they know.
I
They have
think
to be
we
told.
have to present something
There you go.
to them
I'll drink to that.
that spurs something in them. And it's so interesting because when a theater company is trying to put together a season or whatever, my whole thing is like, do what you want to do because it means something to you, and then therefore it will mean something to someone else. It will hit someone somewhere. Don't just pick, of course you have to pick something one or two times that will bring them in for simple laughter or enjoyment because you've got to pay the bills. But do a few of them for your soul.
Why do you guys keep doing it?
We're idiots.
Yeah.
We drink a lot.
And that may be the very definition of artist.
Next up, local actor Kelly McTaggart. Then our spotlight artist, producer, director, and co-founder of the Limelight Theater and founder of a classic theater, Gene Rayner, will be sharing some insights on directing. So Kelly, what is art, man?
I think it's a means of expression.
Well, what makes it art?
I make it art, and you make it art. The human makes it art. The human looks at it and sees that it's beyond its surface.
How about 5 words that describe art the way you see it?
Art is what you make it, is 6 words, but art is, and I think that's what I just keep coming back to, is art is what you, meaning a human, makes.
So if it's not made by a human, it can't be art.
I don't believe so.
Can food be art?
Sure, yeah, because someone made it. Again, you're going back to the human expression. This person has studied, learned. It's a execution of discipline. I don't feel comfortable with that word, but maybe I do have it. But it is something you need. I think art does require discipline. You can create undisciplined art, but don't ask me to like it.
If you don't like it, can it still be art?
Yeah, it is. I mean, yeah, because just because you don't like something doesn't make it go away.
You've done 30 or 40 plays. Have you ever been paid for your work as an actor?
Yeah. I can't live off of it, and I don't have any ASCPA or NAACP, any kind of credentials like that. But I definitely have a BS in communications. It's just like this magnetic moment, That's why I like doing plays. Yeah. Like when you're doing the play or you're watching it and the drama gets to that point where you can't look away, you're on the edge of your seat and you're just so taken with it, and the dialogue or the action comes across, and you and the audience are like, oh yeah. You're emoting as an actor, but if you make your audience, if you make somebody cry, boom. You're all right. Because you took them out of you don't go out to dinner or you don't go out on a date to cry. It may happen, probably more than you want it to, but you go out on a date to have fun. But if you get taken out of that arena all the way to the point where you're crying, like who wants to cry in front of their date? But if you're both crying, then you realize that, hey.
Studs Terkel, he said, it isn't theater if it doesn't make you think or feel.
Live performance has an opportunity to do that.
I'm not very good at it. I prefer
Performance?
directing. Mm-hmm.
Your list of credits for directing,
Yeah.
you've directed dozens
Yeah,
of shows.
I prefer that. That's where my strengths lie. I much prefer it. In fact, when I was like 10 or 11, we saw a lot of movies at that time. There were 5 kids in the house. My mother sent us all to the movies all the time. And so we got the kids together on the back porch, and I was telling them where to stand, what to say. And at the time, I didn't know I was directing, but I thought, this is great.
So then the director just tells you where to stand and when to move?
No.
We had to bleep that one out, folks. So what does the director do, Jane?
The director interprets the script, understands all the characters. The movement is important, the lighting is important, all of that matters. What they're saying, does it make sense? Do they know what they're talking about? You might say, I would try a different tract with that dialogue or with that monologue, because you know it's not fitting into the whole scope of the show. So you can do that. But they should be ready and prepared and know that kind of a thing.
You don't want to give them line readings.
Oh God!
That's the biggest insult in the world.
Well,
get
I
a
have
line reading.
said I don't want to give you a line reading, but you know,
That's a
if
last resort.
somebody you're working with just doesn't have a clue. You know,
Yeah,
tell them.
sometimes you just have to.
Tell them what you're going to
yeah.
tell them, and tell them again.
What do you
Yeah,
think's
to
the
come back
coolest
straight.
part of being a director?
Telling people what to do.
I knew you'd say that.
Yeah. Yeah, and pulling it off.
Now with the local news, our very own Brandy Bocagrande.
Hello, darlings! It's your gal about town, Brandy Bocagrande, with all the latest news on what's hot in the art scene in this fabulous holiday season here in beautiful St. Augustine. Darlings, if you're craving some live theater, and who isn't right now, don't miss the provocative new show at the Limelight Theater, Talking With, a series of monologues spanning the emotional spectrum of 11 unforgettable women. You'll laugh, you'll cry, it's better than Cats. But you'll never forget these remarkable dames. Talking With will run December 4th, 5th, and 6th, and December 11th, 12th, and 13th at the Limelight Theater. For more information, go to limelighttheater.org. That's theater with an R-E. Now, darlings, for all you nostalgic movie musical buffs, have I got a treat for you. First Coast Opera presents America's Singing Sweethearts.
A concert celebrating Jeanette MacDonald and Nelson Eddy.
Thursday, January 7th, 2021, 7:30 p.m. at Lewis Auditorium at Flagler College. Kick off your new year on a high note. And darlings, for those of you who prefer to soak in the holiday spirit in the open air, prance on over to the Beach Art Walk on December 19th. Starting at 5 p.m., A1A will transform into a wintry wonderland of arts and crafts from the pier to A Street, the perfect place to pick up those last-minute, one-of-a-kind gifts. If you haven't experienced downtown St. Augustine's fabulous Nights of Lights yet, you simply mustn't miss it. Downtown parking is free, and the lights will be shining until January 31st. Speaking of downtown, don't forget First Friday Art Walk, December 4th, encompassing the downtown art gallery scene as well as the beach galleries. And darlings, great news! You can have your cake and eat it too. January 1st Friday will be on January 8th. So you can ring in the new year on the 1st and catch the art walk on the 8th. Ooh, it's so delicious. For all of you fabulous literati out there, check out Ancient City Poets on Zoom the last Sunday of every month at 3 p.m. Bring a poem to read or just enjoy an afternoon of poetry by some of North Florida's best. For more information, go to bodor.org, BODOR.org. And finally, my festive little elves, come in a little closer because Brandy has a fabulous surprise for you. The Beach Art Studio will be celebrating its 10th anniversary in 2021. That's a year-long celebration of events and surprises. Stay tuned for inside scoops. This is your gal, Brandy Bocagrande, signing off and wishing all of my darlings out there a happy holiday season and a new year filled with fabulosity. Until next time, back to you, John.
Thank you, Brandy. Next up, from the St. Augustine Arts Association is Diane Bradley. She's the president of the board of directors, and Jennifer Flint, administrator and lover of art. Following them is Brian Murray, director of photography, and Dustin Tuccillo, director and camera operator, who brought their combined 40-plus years' experience in the film industry together to form Diffusion Productions. Jennifer Flint, what is art?
When I was in college, I had a professor who I did not get along with whatsoever. But I'll never forget something he did. It wasn't in class, it was after class, and I was arguing with him about something, and probably about what art was. And he took his trash can, and he just dumped it out on the floor. And I was like, what the heck did you do that for? And he was like, well, look at it. I was like, okay. So he starts pulling things. He pulls like a candy bar wrapper. He's like, listen, so there was an artist who was working late at night. They were hungry to stay, focused or whatever. They ate the candy bar. See this paper towel full of old paint and, dirty water and whatnot? They threw that away because they were busy painting, and maybe they scrubbed over something and whatnot. And he just started telling stories of each of these contents. And so I looked at him and I was like, I get it. That's what art is. It's a story. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be, aesthetically appealing. It could be a just giant mess that you just dumped out, but it's a story. And when you look at something and you can understand the story behind it, or you can see a story behind it, to me, that's art. Whether you see it right away, maybe not, but to me, that's what art is, a story.
How do you know when you see it?
You just do. It speaks to you. It's like, honestly, you just have to look and you have to think about it. And that's, it's not always easy to do and it's not always obvious, but if you really think about it, you can find a story in anything.
What do you think?
I taught art for 30 years.
What did you teach?
I taught high school and middle school, and I taught everything from drawing, painting, ceramics, photography, you name it. So the first thing I did every day, every year, with my new classes, was I put up on the board, what is art? So we would make lists of things, and when we got done, we realized art was all of those things. So I mainly said to my students, look, I don't want you copying things, I want you creating. So art is something that never existed before. It's your own creation. And that, to me, is what art is about. Creating from your own self.
Is having a child art?
Well, I don't know about that, but that I'm talking in terms of aesthetics of the art process.
What does aesthetics mean?
All the aesthetics in art are like life. You have to have balance and proportion, but if you don't throw in some color and texture and contrast, it's not very interesting. So you have to have all those things to make art, whether it's theater art, musical art, visual arts, whatever it is, it has to have those things in there or it doesn't work.
How about 5 words that would describe art the way you see it?
Balance, proportion, color, texture, and contrast.
What role does emotion play in any of that? If any role at all?
That's up to the artist. Not all artists are trying to convey an emotion. Van Gogh brings out such empathy and feeling and understanding. Not all artists do that. That's not the
How does he
point.
do it?
He makes you understand his characters. He shows you their life, what they're like, what they do. I mean, they're just working class people in almost all of his paintings. And yet you get this feeling. He just creates this. And you know, maybe not everybody who looks at that will feel the same way as I did. They might look and go, oh, potato eaters. Why would I be interested in that topic? So as Jennifer said, art has to speak to you personally to be able to convey the message, but maybe not all art speaks to everyone.
And also, just to kind of like touch on that, I think to answer your question a little bit, you know, he uses the colors, the textures, the motion of the brush. You know, he uses these little brush strokes. He doesn't necessarily blend colors. He puts colors on top of colors. And I mean, look at Starry Night or even the street scenes that he did. It's movement. He has movement in his strokes and in his color. And, you know, even when you see his self-portrait, his eyes, he uses, you know, these just dull colors in the eyes almost, and then the rest of it is so vibrant. So you sort of get this sad feeling in his blue eyes that's like he's got this crazy texture and color around him and in his, you know, the rest of his face, but his eyes are just dull and sad. And I think that's sort of a way that he does that, you know, conveys emotion, is through the brush and the colors.
I think a lot of us who make our living doing a craft would say I do a craft and not art. But if we engage fully in the craft, that is artistic. There is an emotional, inexplicable depth there to creating an image that is not just turning on a camera. It is an expression of who I am, and that I would say is art.
So are these stills or is this video we're talking about?
Only video. So I do take stills, but not well.
It's just and it's just a lot of stills played really fast one after the other. So I mean, the concepts of painting with light, the concepts of creating quality of image, it holds true in a lot of photography and a lot of video the same. You know, rather than flash, we would always use continuous, but a lot of photography, a lot of photographers use continuous lighting now too, to really model and get the stuff that they're looking for. So there's a part of that. Like I don't know, the definition of art was always something that I was thinking about on the way over here because I knew it was a question you were going to ask. But I take a much broader thought on it than what you just said. Like I think art is the process of creation, and it's just anything. If you're creating something, it's created artfully, right? It has the ability to be art. And it's the expression of anything or something that you have to get out, you have to do. And so, you know, robotics engineers make art in robots, you know, architects make art in concrete block buildings. Like there's an artistic edge to all of that. My definition.
What is an artistic edge? What is art then? I mean, what is
art? Is the process of, to me, it's the process of creation. Anything you're creating has the elements of being art. You know, I don't necessarily like all art. In fact, there's a whole lot of stuff I don't care for, but if it speaks to you or it speaks to somebody else, like just that process of creating something is what I consider to be art. And whether it's photography, painting, you know, or like I say, robotics, engineering, you know, building a perfect, you know, laying out a perfect floor plan for a 160,000 square foot laundry. There's art to that.
What about having a baby?
There's certainly art in creation of a new life. I mean, that's so complex it'd be hard to even discuss. But yeah, that's beauty.
Is that art?
Yeah. So that I think that's the distinction. Is it beautiful? Is it art? Is it beautiful? Okay, man. I'm gonna go deep. If you want me to, I mean, if we're gonna talk, we Dustin and I ride together a lot, going to different projects. So we had a lot of deep discussion. We had a lot of stupid discussion, but oftentimes it touches on these topics of art, of deeper meaning, of who we are. And one of the things, like you were saying, when somebody sits and meditates on a single topic for long enough, art is happening and possibly, not necessarily, but possibly beauty is occurring.
What is art?
So that art, as we've just described it here, I would say is that thing that is an expression of who you are. If it's art, then I should be able to see you in it. Even if it's construction.
When you say you, do you mean you should be able to see me and Heather's art?
No, I should be able to see Heather in Heather's art, or John and John's art. If it doesn't express you, I would say that's my defining line. It's not art until it's you. If it's expressing me, speaking of myself in the third person now, if Brian is being expressed in a creation, then Dustin should be able to say that and say, Brian was here. Brian did that. I think that's the defining line between craft and art.
What do you think, Dustin?
I don't know. I would say I tend to lean back and again, a little broader than that specific definition. Because I think when you start to talk about what you visualize in it and what a project says to another person, the observer, right? So there's definitely a philosophy of art that says it doesn't matter what the artist intended, because it only matters what the viewing of it is, what the impression that it gives to any individual viewer. So I worry that when you start talking about any kind of those specifics where you're labeling what somebody else's experience would be, you're getting into a subjective characteristic, right? Something that's an opinion based on what you believe. And that might mean true to you. That might very much be the way that you see that. But you couldn't tell somebody else that that's the same interpretation would have. Does that make sense? Like what is beautiful? What is beautiful to me is certainly, I do not expect it to be beautiful to everybody else. Mm-hmm. What I interpret from a piece of art, whether or not I see the artist behind it or I find something totally else in it, because I don't know the artist and I didn't have that frame of reference. So I see whatever I see, and it's a complete abstract idea. There's still that effort that something was created that inspired some feeling in somebody else, right? So that's why I lean back to art is the process of creation, whatever that thing is. And as soon as you set it out into the world, as soon as you let it go, you never have control of what it means again. And that's hard for storytellers because you want to control that everywhere. But it truthfully isn't. And you don't have that control anymore once it's been set free into the world.
This episode's quote is from Chris Bodor. Take it away, Chris.
To think, yes, that we just had a half-an-hour conversation for me to figure out what the hell I'm trying to say. And that's what it's like living with me. So,
so there you go.
That's our show for now, folks. If you want to figure out what Chris was talking about, tune in to the next episode. I want to thank everyone who shared their thoughts, and we'd love to hear from you. What do you think? What is art? Please let us know at risingtideproductions158.com. risingtideproductions with an S, 158.com. And who knows, you may be featured in a future episode. Thanks to Sonic Pistolero for the music, Corey Michael Smithson for still photography, Jen Latka and Amy Lauer Golden for the news, Heather Eggleston for sound design and editing, and the Beach Art Studio for the use of their beautiful space. I'm John, and we appreciate you listening.